My name is Carolina Robinson. I'm the Director of Education Abroad here at UA. I am so excited to present to you all a virtual global internship that we have in partnership with Global Academic Ventures, GAV, which is our partnering institution. So GAV has worked with us for a couple of years on our programs in Australia, and Singapore was our kind of most recent partnership. And so we're starting a new venture to support our students who couldn't go abroad this summer. So today is just a very quick session to talk about what the global virtual internship has to offer, how to apply, what the placement process looks like. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. For our business students who are in the room, we are offering this course as an IBA International Business Course, $492. It's an 8-week internship. So the commitment is 15 hours a week towards the internship program. It is going to be a 1-hour class. Okay, so some of the areas of interest of the internship are for marketing, communications, innovations, entrepreneurship, data analytics, finance, international business, human resources, supply chain, supply sourcing, procurement, and nonprofit administration. So if your particular major lines up with these particular areas of internships, I think it would be a good match for you. And obviously, Maddie can speak a little bit more to the particular companies and areas of internship. So again, we work with GAV to provide us with these contacts to these companies. And so the companies are located in Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, Hong Kong, Vietnam, Thailand, Japan, and Ireland. So you'll be working and doing a virtual internship with one of these international companies, but obviously from your home. So I'll go ahead and let Maddie talk about the placement process with GAV and kind of the day-to-day experience of what a student does on this particular program.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So yeah, my name is Maddie. I work here at Global Academic Ventures in the Chicago office. I've been with GAV for about 2 years, but I also had the opportunity to go on a Global Academic Ventures program in my undergrad. So I like to think that I have, a pretty good view of kind of what the internship placement process looks like on both the student side as well as, of course, the GAV side of things. So I'll kind of start with kind of how the placement process works, so you kind of know what to expect going into it if you're interested. So basically those fields of study, so we definitely focus on, business internships. And basically from the beginning, we will ask you to send through a resume, as well as send through an interview form that we send through to you with a bunch of questions, just to kind of get to know you a little bit better, not only your experience that you previously have, but also kind of some of the preferences that you might be looking for in an internship placement. So that might include, of course, location, as well as maybe company size, what type of company you might work best with as far as size. Maybe you want to work with a small startup company. Maybe you have dreams to work for a larger company. And so we'll kind of talk through all of those things with you, and you'll be able to fill out a form kind of giving that information to us. And then from there, what we do as well is we set up a virtual call with all of our students. So this is also, again, another time to just kind of talk with you, get to know you a little bit better, understand kind of what you have previous experience in, as well as what you're looking for in an internship experience. So we'll set that up between you and GAV. One of our staff members will do a Zoom call with you to kind of talk through in a little bit more detail. So then from there, our team sends through a summary of what we discuss in that meeting. And so that our placement team can have 3 different documents that kind of outline who you are and what you're looking for. So those documents will be your resume, your interview form that you fill out on our Google form, and then a summary of what we discussed in our meeting virtually face-to-face. And then from there, we send all of those items over to our placement teams for our specific country that you're interested in. And from there, the placement process really kind of begins. And it is a very specified process to each of our students, meaning that each student has kind of a different timeline for placement, and each student has a very specific, kind of process once we get going in the placement process, because it is so individualized to each student and what they're looking to do, what field of study they're in, as well as what they have experience in and their preferences. So basically what our team does, our placement team will kind of work as the middleman between you and the companies. So we will circulate your resume out on a rolling basis, meaning that we'll continue to send your resume out to new companies up until you're placed with a company. So this just means that, we don't just send you to one company and then we don't have you just going into a internship that we've had only in the past, or that doesn't change from year to year, which is a good thing, because each year companies have different projects at certain times of the year, different tasks that they need help with, different departments that they need interns in. So again, just to say that is a very intricate, personalized experience for our students as far as the placement process goes.
Hey,
So
Maddie,
we reach
I have
out.
a question.
Yeah.
Do students need to have a specific language? I mean, do they need to know the language of the country in order to do the internship?
Great question. So you do not need to know a specific language. So all of the companies that we work with, no matter what location, we make sure that they do speak English during working hours. And so, of course, for virtual, that means that your communication with them will be in English. The only thing we ever find with language is when students are on the ground and different colleagues are speaking at lunchtime in different languages and things like that. So you won't have any issues with that here. But yeah, so all of our companies in any location is going to be English speaking. So, I know a lot of students maybe at the beginning of the process are like, well, I would prefer to go to Australia because I know that, primary language will be English. And maybe they had really always wanted to do an internship with a company in Hong Kong or Singapore, but you feel like that might be a barrier. So you don't have to worry about language barrier. And all of our companies will know that you are, US students, or at least going to school within the US. Some of you might be international students, but yes, the primary language will be English. Great. Yeah, so basically, like I said, GAV works kind of as the middleman between you and the company. So you won't get direct emails from companies. I know that can be overwhelming. So we do all the communication with the companies to make sure that they have relevant projects for you, that they are within your field of study, and that they have the correct supervision for you for your program. And then if a company wants to do an interview with you, I would say about 98% of our companies like to do some type of interview with our students, but that will again all be set up through GAV. So we'll definitely be there as a resource for you, not only through the placement process, but also throughout the program to check in and see how things are going. So basically, GAV will email you and say, hey, this company is interested in interviewing you. When are you available? And help you with that interview process as well. Give you information about the company before the interview and help you prepare for that. As well as, of course, afterwards gaining feedback and seeing whether or not it's a good fit for you. And just like any other kind of job interview, the final selection is up to the company ultimately. We like to gain student feedback after the interview to see how it felt and see if you feel like the projects were something that was interesting to you, or that, just kind of get a feel of how that interview goes. But just like any other job, it is up to the host company. They might be interviewing students from within their host country, or they might be interviewing other students on our program. But again, with that rolling process, there's really no time lost in any interview that you do that doesn't maybe work out or isn't a good fit, because we are continuously circulating your resume out to new companies and new opportunities. So that's kind of how.
Maddie, I have a question.
Yeah.
So thank you for talking about the placement process. And so if we potentially have a June start date, June 7th, I believe, for the internship, like how early or how late can a intern know where they'll be placed? Will they know obviously before the internship starts?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So there, because it's so, individualized, there's no specific date that all of our students get their placements on the same day. But Of course, basically the main thing with that is being really communicative with GAV, making sure that you get all your documents on time, making sure that you sign up for an interview with us early on, and just being really on top of your items so that we can start the placement process as soon as possible. So just checking emails, responding to us as soon as possible. And so the only ever delays that we really see in the placement and actually, finding out the placement is if students are unresponsive or not giving us the documents that we need in order to move forward. And so that's kind of, again, something to go into the program and keeping in mind that making sure that you have the time and the commitment to really be on top of your emails and getting your items done as quickly as possible. Of course, we understand that you're students, that you might have other things going on, but going into it, we definitely want to make sure that you are committed to the process and are on top of your items. And then in that way that you shouldn't be any delays in your placement. But yeah, that timeline can look different for each student. And if you maybe are going into this program with a friend or something, I know students like to talk about the placement process, but it really is so individualized to each student. And so you don't ever have to, during the process, ever compare your timeline to someone else's, just because of course there's so many factors when we're speaking with companies. Some companies have to go through HR and legal just to see if they're able to host an intern, things like that. So that communication can take some time. And sometimes the companies are ready to go right away, or they're companies we've worked with in the past. And so it's a really seamless process. So it just kind of depends on so many different factors. But yeah, basically just that communication and getting things done quickly and being committed from the start will, ensure that you have, your internship placement well ahead of your start date. Great. And then I can kind of go a little bit into, again, kind of what the day-to-day will look like. And with our virtual internships, it really does, of course, look different depending on what type of company you're interning for. So what we do, so with the time difference, a lot of our countries are going to be in like an Asia Pacific time zone. And so with that, we typically find that, so there's a required one meeting each week with the host company. So that will be, a virtual meeting. And that's just really the minimum. Some of our host companies like to do check-ins over email, over maybe WhatsApp, or any other type of program that you can use to communicate easily with them. And so that will kind of be, again, of course, verbalized to you before your start date, get you all set on kind of what those expectations are. And so the day-to-day can definitely look a little bit different for each student. And with that being said, especially with our Asia Pacific countries, if you're wanting to intern in one of those locations, there is actually a decent amount of overlap in the day, but that might take place a little bit more in the afternoon or late evening or early evening. So for instance, about 4 p.m. Central Standard Time is about 9 a.m. Australia time the next day. So with those Asia Pacific countries, it's actually kind of nice because there is a decent amount of overlap. We don't expect you to change your sleep schedule. We don't expect you to take calls at 3 in the morning or anything like that, or only be working during the office hours of your host country. However, something that might be, again, something we talk with your supervisor and you about is would it be helpful during the program to have you work a few of those hours that overlap, so that if you have immediate questions, that you can just WhatsApp chat them or hop on a call. And again, that's really dependent on the parameters of your project and what it really will take to complete that project, whether or not you want your host company wants you to do that. So for example, that would just be saying, instead of working from 9 a.m. to noon on a day, you might be asked to work from 2 p.m. to 5 instead. So just kind of shifting that schedule to a little bit of a later time zone. But again, not expecting you to stay up at crazy hours or anything like that. We've had students do these virtual programs in all of our locations for as long as really COVID has been happening. So a year now. And so we don't see that there's too many issues with, again, that time difference, because I know that can be kind of a concern. But basically kind of those calls that you have to do every week. Again, there's a lot of flexibility in you and your host company deciding what works best in order to complete that project or those tasks for each week. So maybe it works best for you and your host company to meet out every Monday and then get your tasks. And then if you have questions, you email them or you message them, however they prefer, throughout the week. And then the next Monday you meet again. Maybe they want you to do that on Fridays. Maybe they want you to do that midweek. So it really just kind of depends again on each individual internship placement and kind of what works best for you and your supervisor and how to communicate the best throughout the program. Anyone have any questions about that? I know it's a ton of information, but if you do decide that you want to participate, GAV will give all of this in, of course, writing and give you step-by-step instructions on what to expect, as well as what we need from you throughout the entire process.
I actually have one more question.
Yeah.
And I understand that there's different areas of interest, and our students are coming from different majors. So can you kind of explain to me like maybe what a student project would look like on an internship? Or do you have maybe portfolios that you can share that show us kind of what students have done in the past?
Yeah, let me actually, I can pull up an example. So yeah, like you said, there's so many different majors. So the students really have different interests and different things that they'd like to learn, which is again, something that we really try and talk through before the placement process actually starts by having the students fill out that interview form as well as doing a virtual meeting with them. So, for instance, a marketing student might have more of an interest in wanting to learn more of the creative side. So actually creating, marketing campaigns and all of that. Of course, there's overlap. You're going to do probably a little bit of both of these things in any role within that major, for example. But then there might be another student who's a little bit more interested in the bigger picture of how does a campaign, get made and what are the steps to take to do that, and more of the kind of project management side of marketing. So that's something that we will kind of narrow down in our conversations and our interview form with students. So yeah, it's a little hard
to let you share the screen.
Yeah, give me just one moment. I will pull up one of our.
While you're pulling that up, this experience is bound in a course. Again, for our business students, it's being bound in IBA 492. So Diana Gomez will be teaching the course. And so part of the stuff of your internship, some of the work for your internship course is probably going to be maybe some reflection papers or some check-ins to see how you're doing a week. We've got some professional development sessions to share with you all, kind of to teach you how to work with in a business or a company in a different culture than you're kind of used to, because the American business culture is one thing, but maybe the business culture in Singapore is very different. And then she might ask you to do kind of a portfolio or just gather some of the items that you have done in your internship to show what a deliverable of what your process is. She may also ask, and hopefully we can get just some feedback from your supervisor of the internship to make sure that that they're providing just kind of a feedback on how you did in that particular role. So these are all kind of things that I imagine Professor Gomez can speak upon once the students register for the course. That isn't going to overwhelm you in the internship, but we do need to gather some assets and gather some deliverables to provide us with just examples of your work during that time. Okay, you want me to stop sharing or? Maddie, I think you're muted. Sorry.
There we go. Sorry. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I'm pulling up a few different little examples. So basically, how it works is once you are once a company wants to send you an offer, we actually have them fill out an internship description with details about, the company, kind of outlining what your projects and tasks might be. So I can pull up one of those for you here. All right. Let's see here. Share screen. Okay. So for example, can you, let's see, can you see the PDF on there?
It looks like it's trying to load,
Okay.
but we have
Sorry
a
about
black
that.
screen so far.
Okay, let's see.
Do you want to try to unshare and then reshare to see if it just, oh, here we go. Now we see something.
There we go. Now you see it?
Yes.
A PDF? Okay, perfect. All right, so for example, this student was one of our spring students, and you'll see here that you know, we give a little bit about the host company. Some, of course, are longer than others, but you can see that the project description will really outline some of the tasks that the student might be doing. And so you can see, you know, focusing on customer service loyalty, conducting analysis. So we really make sure that this company uses, you know, has actual, I guess the point is that we want you to be working on actual projects and tasks. So that's something that we make sure that the company has ahead of time. We don't want this internship to be something where you're only, you know, maybe collecting, for example, you know, companies to outreach, like just databasing, that type of thing. We want you to be able to actually make sure that they can articulate what kinds of projects you might be working on. And so you can see here, there's a lot of different things. Determining patterns, so again, that analysis, you know, doing check-ins, being a part of meetings. So I guess you can kind of read it, but being a part of, you know, different meetings with stakeholders and all of that, so you can kind of see that there's actual specifics of what the student's kind of learning outcomes are and kind of what that student will be working on. And so I guess that's part of kind of making sure that you're aware that you won't just be kind of, you know, working on clerical work the entire time. We make sure that you're actually working on, you know, specific projects and specific tasks that will be impactful to the company is, you know, definitely one of our main goals. So that's just kind of one example for you. Do you have any questions for me on that? I know this is just a very brief example for you of one of the things that our students have done. Again, depending on your field of study, that might look completely different. But any questions for me?
That was really helpful to share that. Students, if you guys have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself or jump on in the chat, and we're happy to take some questions.
I actually have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
In the email, it said that the program is $200 when the scholarship is applied. Would that scholarship take away from the fall semester scholarship, or is that separate?
It's separate, but I'll talk about that after Ariane talks about the application process. So I'll make sure to answer that question for you. Anybody else have any other questions?
Hi, my name is Nick. I apologize for the noise. I'm in a public.
No worries.
But I wanted to ask, do you have a list or some sort of, you know, yeah, I guess just list of companies, potential companies that like we would be working with based on our field of study like this year, or companies that students have worked with in past years, anything like that?
So I can go ahead and answer that. So we don't actually have a list of companies that we can share, but and that the reason for that is, you know, a lot of different things, of course, some confidentiality things, but also just because we want to make sure, like I said before, from year to year and from some, you know, program to program, that the companies that we work with have relevant projects. So let's say maybe one year we work with a specific company within a certain department, and they have projects for the students to work on. Maybe this year or this semester or this summer, they don't have enough projects to actually host an intern. So what that means is we don't have, you know, like specific contracts or anything with companies that we saying that they have to host our interns or anything like that, which is actually a good thing, because that just means that, you know, so I know some internships within the US are kind of more set up like a course in a way, meaning that you go in with, okay, you're with all the other finance students that we send to a certain company. You work on a project that's kind of just made for interns. In this program is a lot different than that, meaning that, again, it's very personalized to you, and each student, gets a different placement. There might be multiple students in one company if they have the resources to host more than one. But basically, overall, we don't have a list just because we reach out to new companies each year, maybe that we've never worked with in the past. We work with companies we have worked with in the past. And those can just really kind of vary depending on, your field of study, what you're interested in, company size that you're interested in as far as a preference. I know that doesn't really answer your question, but it just varies so much.
And people need to, realize that sometimes placement companies, that's part of, the work that you do, is that you can't share that particular information because it is confidential to GAV. Dalton had a question: is the program flexible enough to work a job at home at the same time? Again, your requirement is 15 hours a week. And so I think Maddie would probably say that, that is something that you would put into your documentation, that you were also going to be, potentially working a job, in person in the US, and then to potentially let your supervisor know that, you might have really early hours in the US, but that your hours from, let's say, 4 to 10 might be focused with GAV. And 15 hours a week is, I think, manageable. It really is 3 hours a day. So think about it as you kind of working an internship while going to school, right? It's kind of very similar, except that you really do need to make sure that you're using your best communication skills to indicate to your current job that's in person and your virtual job, your kind of time constraints or time, you have to be available at both places for certain times, right? So I think it can be doable. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, just keep in mind the time difference as well. That's something to keep in mind. You'll probably be working from like 3 to 11, or not 3 to 11, but like 3 p.m. onwards if you're having like meetings with your company abroad. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
Ariane, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Ariane Iqbalian. I am the Education Abroad Advisor for Culver House. I'm going to walk you guys through the application process and how you can apply. So I'm going to share my screen with y'all real quick. I know some of y'all might have already applied, but just to make everyone on the same page. So on our website, studyabroad.ua.edu, if you go down to program search here, very big thing where it says show, instead of outgoing, you need to switch it to program enrollment. If you don't, you will not be able to find this program application, and then go to summer and then just click search. And you can see UA Virtual Global Internship Business. This is the one that you want to do. Don't do the second one. So click this one here. And this will take you, give you the general information that we've just discussed. You can see that it's going to be taught by Diana. You're going to take IBA 492. And then you'll just click this Apply Now button here. And then I'll just share. Eventually, you're going to get to this page here. And it has the online program, like the application overview, which is very similar to our regular study abroad program applications. Just a couple things to keep in mind. As Carolina will talk about more, you will need to apply for the Education Abroad grant in order to bring down the cost for this internship to $200. And so you can access the Education Abroad grant here through your application. You will also, in addition, another interesting note for this application is if you click down all the way down here, ask us, you'll be answering some questions about your plan. So have you ever done an internship before? Do you already have an internship lined up for this summer? And because spots are limited for this internship, we are requiring all students to write a short essay on how does an international experience fit into your career plan. Maximum 500 words, so short and sweet. And then finally, you will need to upload a resume. This resume will be sent to Gav for the placement process. And if you're unsure about your resume being employer ready, we have collaborated with the Career Center to offer 2 handshake events. So where you can improve your resume. They're going to be held March 12th from 12 to 1 and March 18th from 12:30 to 1:30. So those are the main points in terms of our application process. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't know if anyone else has questions. If you do have questions about the application process, please email me. I will be the main email contact for that. So as you can see, there's my email on the screen. And yeah, I'll look forward to working with y'all.
So just as Maddie said, there are some specific GAV forms that we are putting in the post-decision part of the application, which basically means you're going to submit your resume, you're going to submit that quick essay, answer a few questions, read through some of the other signature documents. Once you submit it to us, then we will review, and once you've been accepted, then we'll open up the other parts of the application, which are the GAV specific stuff. Go ahead, Maddie. I saw you.
Yeah, I just had one thing quickly to add on. If any of you guys are going to go and do that resume review, or as you're uploading your application and you're adding your resume, one thing that GAV will ask you to do that's kind of specific to our program on your resume is to include a relevant coursework section, because a lot of our Asia Pacific countries, especially Singapore and Hong Kong, really like to ask us for what types of coursework have these students taken. And that's just, again, in addition to your experience, to kind of show what you've taken within your field of study, or just in general, kind of what you have some knowledge on. So just wanted to kind of note that, so that you don't have to do it twice. If you are going to go through with an application and you want to update your resume, this can actually just go under your education header. It doesn't have to be an entire, big block of space, but we just would ask that you put, relevant coursework with, a colon, and just write out the full name of some of the courses that you've taken that would be relevant to your field of study and relevant to what you're looking for in an internship. And so that, it doesn't have to be course codes or anything. They won't know what those mean, but you can go ahead and just type out, for example, introduction to business, or introduction to finance, or, macroeconomics, and just kind of list a few of those courses. It doesn't have to be every course you've taken, but just, again, some of the relevant ones. I just wanted to add that before, just so you guys don't have to update your resume twice.
No, thank you, Maddie, for saying that. And I actually had it included in this particular slide. And it is something that we're going to mention out to all the students. So we'll send you a reminder email to make sure that your resume has relevant coursework. As Ariane mentioned, there are 2 handshake events that's specific to this global virtual internship, where someone's going to help you all with getting your resume ready. If you've uploaded your resume already and haven't gone to the workshop and want to resubmit your resume, we're happy to do so. Ariane can help with that process. It's not a big deal, but I would highly recommend that your resume be reviewed, or that you get the tips from these particular handshake events. You don't have to attend both, but maybe just attend one. Or if you can't make these events, just make a connection with the Career Center or somebody who has some really great experience, because that resume and your interest form is basically going to represent you to all the companies. And so you want to make sure that being your first impression is the most professional impression of you, right? They will choose to have an interview with you in a face-to-face virtual experience with you based on that resume. So it has to, that's kind of where the meat of all of this is, and kind of a good focus should be. And lastly, to talk about this, because this is basically a virtual international program, we have the opportunity to charge it at the in-state rate. And so regardless if you are an in-state student or not, that's kind of one of the beauties of doing a virtual internship, and even an international program that's supported through the university or faculty-led program. So registering for one course, which is the 492, which is a 1-hour course. I think we'll have it ready. I believe it is already ready and set to go. So I will make sure that the students who are chosen to do this part experience will have the correct CRN to register for it. But when bills go out, it'll be $420. We're kind of requiring students to apply for the EA scholarship because it's just money that is sitting there waiting for you to use it. And so the scholarship will be $220 and will reduce the cost of the internship to $200. So some might say, well, why am I paying for an internship? There are basically, I can't really think of any international internships that are free. It just, it isn't a thing that is kind of existent in our field. And so this is a very, I think, small cost for the benefit that you will have. Number one, having an 8-week experience. Number two, having an opportunity to write that you worked with an international corporation or business on your resume. And then 3, just the learning that you're going to get from that particular experience. We do want to mention that technology cost is not included. So, you know, obviously it's a virtual internship. You're going to be having to work from home or having to work from on campus or wherever you'll be. And so you need to have and be own a laptop or a computer, and obviously have some Wi-Fi access to be able to participate in your internship.
One more thing I want to add, just letting y'all know, if you are an international business minor and you're looking to, just keep in mind, this will count towards your study abroad requirement. So you don't, just keeping that, also another reason why this is a great opportunity is that it will count towards that study abroad requirement.
Absolutely. Since travel is a little bit restrictive still because of the pandemic. Thank you, Ariane, for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any last questions?
I have a quick question. Sorry, just to clarify. So from the university, we'll receive that 1 credit course hour, but from the company we're working for, we won't receive any monetary compensation. It's just the experience.
Correct.
Okay.
Great question, Megan. Any other questions? I failed to mention, I apologize earlier, that we're recording this session for students who weren't able to make it today. So I hope that that is okay. But we're going to share it out with people just so they have kind of the most relevant information. So I apologize for not mentioning that earlier. I had a note that I covered up and I forgot to read it. So any last thoughts or ideas? Maddie, do you have any last?
No, I think we pretty much covered it. You know, definitely, as you said, just echoing, this is a great opportunity for not only getting that class credit as well as an international experience, and you know, some if it's required for you, but also I think it really, you know, although of course we'd like to have students on the ground in our locations, we found that it's still a really great opportunity and really gives students an edge up definitely in the career search in the future, because you know, a lot of companies might be moving to a more virtual platform in the future. We're realizing that it's you know, manageable to talk to people from all over the world pretty easily now with a simple Zoom link. And so I think, you know, just having that on your resume, I always tell students that having an international experience and now saying that you did it virtually during a pandemic, and having that full-time, or not full-time, but you know, part-time internship experience is going to be something that companies will see on your resume and probably talk to you about that for a good 30 minutes in any type of interview. So definitely something to consider for all those different reasons. And yeah, I hope that you guys consider joining our program.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for your time. And Maddie and Ariane, thank you so much for helping. Again, Ariane, I'm going to put her email back up. She is your immediate contact for anything around kind of the application process. So please reach out to her. She can answer a lot of questions. We'll be working behind the scenes to make sure the scholarship is ready to go. Your course is kind of set up. And getting kind of GAV specific documents in the application process so we can get the placement process started. So one thing to mention, time is of the essence, right? The more time they have to place, the better it is for you, right? The sooner you'll know where you'll be placed. And so please continue to just complete your application, and that allows us to move you to the next portion of the process and allows us to get our documents to GAV a lot sooner. So thank you guys so much for your time, and I appreciate it. Hopefully we'll see your application in soon.
I do have one last question.
Yeah, go ahead.
For the grant, is the grant deadline any like earlier or later than the?
Yeah,
No, so we're going to, the grant deadline is going to be March 25th, which is the deadline for the GAV application. And so we'll take care of you. If we see in the application that you haven't started it, we're going to be nudging students to say, hey, go ahead and make sure that you complete this application. We have, the grant is within our office, so we have that flexibility to adjust the deadlines there. Yeah. We're good. Awesome, guys. Thanks so much. I really appreciate your time.